start recording again.
Cast iron skillet, you get the oil and flour, you get it warmed up, and then you put it, set the oven to 350, get up the temperature, and when you take the cast iron, put it.
No, it
inside
says
the oven.
complete to stop. It says
Every
it's
20
5
minutes,
times.
you go in and check it, give it a stir, every 20 minutes check it, and it'll slowly bring it up to the perfect color that you want.
Huh.
So that's
Okay,
setting it over the top.
all right.
And
All right.
perfect, yeah.
Sorry, wasn't my job.
Yeah.
Was, it
It's just when
usually
you
is,
gotta
thank
watch it when you start,
you.
you don't realize it, you got roux and pour it off into
Okay,
the
it's recording, she said just let it go. I don't know why.
It's hot oil this morning, and then she kind of spits it back.
So,
It's that cheap one.
everyone,
That's right, that's hot.
we're recording actually right now. We had some trouble, so we're just gonna let it go. We'll edit the first part out later, but just know you're being recorded and it's going out live.
Okay.
Where's the mic?
I was
The
thinking
mic's coming off
about,
the
so everybody heard my secret on how to make a perfect roux?
Perfect gumbo.
Perfect gumbo? Hey,
Or-
damn it.
Still be able to hear you.
Yeah, the roux, I guess the roux is made in what different stuff.
Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
What? Some tequila,
Yeah.
which is
Good evening.
a powder, that helps.
There you go.
It's a nice little,
Hello.
What it helps is a thickener. Instead of using okra is also thickens up.
Hey, does anybody want any coffee?
Pardon?
Coffee?
Decaf?
I'm gonna go grab some. Decaf? Regular? Regular?
Yeah, regular.
I'll get regular.
I like mine
I drink
leaded.
the regular off.
I like mine leaded.
Decaf and regular. I'm not a lot of it, it's in the car.
I like leaded also, but
Yeah, not high octane, just leaded.
High octane.
So Carol said, I drink high octane, I'll be with it. That's what happened.
I used to, when we went to Chinese food, I used to drink quite a bit of green tea.
You know, that'll get you.
And then well, I would call mine and I think, why? It's the green tea.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
People are amazed how much caffeine.
Oh, I know. I know.
How's Deanna this evening?
Excited, that's getting close to budgets.
Oh, yeah, oh, you haven't heard yet? We're starting every week now?
My favorite thing, the budget cycle.
We'll be here next Monday and the Monday after that. and the
Monday after that.
and the Monday after that.
One of them, it'll be a Tuesday, they'll put one up. But
Oh, yeah, man,
Or-
I think next week.
no, it's the week after. Oh, it is
Yeah,
next week.
Yeah, the
It
12th,
is
so
next
it'll be
week.
the 13th.
Yeah.
Tuesday the 13th.
Oh, good.
It's too fast for him. Sunglasses.
Did she drive or is she flying, Janice?
She's actually flying in, she can go out of Sydney on down,
Oh, good.
and, yeah, and it was about half of what going out of Wilson,
Yeah.
and closer than Helen Bish was gonna drive to, Bismarck and go out. But that's about a 2.5 hour drive in Sydney, and we got 45 minutes, so.
Ooh, that's easy.
And it was less going out of Sydney than I was like, $20.
I like those win-win things.
Well, my grandson is gonna come home from California the 16th, I think, was because Clamming starts on the 17th.
Such a
Won't be here, so. And they could fly from California round trip for $130-something round
Yeah, I've
trip,
heard right now.
which
airfare.
was cheap.
Yeah, airfare.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because see, normally, and it still is, if she would have flown out
So if I do it from
to
the-
fly out of Williston,
Okay.
it was another 45-minute drive. It's like over $600 to fly.
I know.
So,
Regular?
Did you want some help?
No, what's that, doing this?
Pardon?
Doing this?
Yeah,
No, it's just one at a time, I'm good. I'm
okay.
good. Listen, I'm here to serve.
Oh,
Hey,
I tried to
Deanna?
catch you. You're pulling out.
Is it too late? Am I too late for the screen?
No, it's still up.
Oh, is it? Oh my gosh, great. I need, hold on a second.
So who needs agendas? Anyone else?
Oh, me.
Will Penn does.
Thank you.
You gave me one already, thanks.
Carl, yeah, get one to Will. That way, yeah, I'm good. No, I'm good. Yeah, do y'all still have the large containers of?
There is a case of it in the office at Woodland actually with your name on it.
Is it, oh, okay, good.
Anytime you want to stop by.
If the phone would quit blowing up, so I get a chance to go by there, I had a chance Friday, no, Thursday, last Thursday. But it was like a little after 4, and I'm like, oh, I didn't make it.
Yeah,
So
they're
I'm trying to-
usually like Tuesday
to make
through
it-
Friday. I'm
Regular.
usually there from like 9 in the morning till 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So I might try to make it, if we don't go sideways on us tomorrow, I'll try to get it down there so we can get that.
Because you took
Well,
the little box truck, didn't you? So the
Is,
refrigerated truck, they were driving.
These are, Hilson Post tonight.
And somebody kicked up a rock, broke the windshield.
I'm assuming it's gonna be like
So,
Chelsea.
windshield
Anthony.
person came and fixed it for like
What's
less
that
than
guy's name?
Caleb?
Oh,
replaced
good.
it.
Is
So-
that who that, I'm just reading names that are
Oh,
up there.
yeah,
No,
yeah, it's
okay.
Caleb.
Okay.
yeah, the refrigerator's slightly bigger than I thought.
I always get them confused
With
with
FCS.
I can haul it,
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
legally.
Yeah,
Yes, I haul bigger stuff, but some of these things.
Oh,
you have
Deanna,
to-
I forgot to
Should
mention,
the letters
we were
on
having
the
trouble with the,
Yeah.
with the recording, so it started early. So we're recording right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
I should have said that when you were talking earlier.
So
Sorry.
if we need to say something, we should whisper.
Yeah. So my secret to making a perfect movie out there, everyone. You got it in the software. Yeah. Everybody got it? Yeah, everybody got it. All you gotta do is go to Good Eats, watch all the, I don't know exactly how to do it.
I'm sure, Carl.
Thank
Deep now?
thank you, sir.
You back?
That's really
That's good.
good job, Will.
Well, Plaza was in the parking lot, and then I pulled in and we left.
Nothing
I don't
personal.
know if that's a sign or what.
I don't know.
I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah. Just said you're having a cup of coffee, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know,
Ben's coming, right?
Yeah.
Monty is on vacation.
Yeah, Monty comes up here.
Money went. Here comes Heckle and Jekyll.
There's Mr. Frederick was there. Yeah.
Hello, Ben.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Frederick, 6 feet, please, thank you.
Yeah, you walked into my circle.
Just so you're aware, we're already recording.
Oh, that's
Yes.
fine.
So you're aware.
Are you on vacation?
Council vacation. Let's just put it that way.
Why are you here?
Hey, did you just
Next
steal my
Monday.
pen? I'm watching. Gross. Don't touch my
Yeah,
stuff,
man,
Mr.
next
Frederick.
And then the Monday after that, and then the Monday after that. What's that?
Someone from out front.
Down here. Into the counter verification.
Mr.
That's-
No worries, we are recording.
That's what it is.
Looks like we got another full house.
Got Tupac Shakur there going on.
Hey.
Good call, friend.
Please don't touch my things again.
We got a man. Oh shit! It's almost time. Here we go. Oh no! Here's your gavel.
Lonnie's not coming tonight, he's on vacation.
You have 1 whole minute. Do it, Jake.
I'm here.
Oh god, that's good call.
Alright.
Close enough. Ms. Hall, is there anything additional to this?
That was it. That's what was sitting here.
I didn't spend any money last time?
So what I saw looked peachy keen to me.
Oh, we're good. You said we're recording, right? Yes.
Yes.
Never mind.
I
Looks
will,
like we've got a full house this evening, so that's good.
Yeah. Need to bring in more chairs.
Yes.
My birthday was Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday, Carl.
So I took
Oh,
the-
yes.
we went to the, finally got to the Golden Tent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Oh, I like that place.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I like that place.
I think those are
Are you ready, Mr. Goddard?
part of an attachment. I don't know.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 p.m. on Monday, October 5th, 2020. This is a meeting, a regular meeting for the City Council of Woodland. If I could get everyone in the gallery to please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, Mr. Boyce, shall I take the roll, or you got it?
I can call it off.
All right, Mr. Boyce.
Councilmember Holland,
Present.
Councilmember Round,
Here.
Councilmember Chapman,
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks,
Here.
Councilmember Graham,
Here.
Councilmember Plaza,
Here.
Councilmember Smith is absent.
Chair will accept a motion to excuse Councilmember Smith this evening. He has called in with annual leave.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Councilmember Smith has been excused. I almost said Frederick.
I'll leave right now.
All right. All right, moving on. We have a presentation this evening for the Exit 21 interchange from Kittleson and Associates. This will be the final presentation. And who do I have on the line with us this evening? I see Anthony. Good to see you. And who's with you on the team tonight? We got Caleb over here in the corner. And anyone else, or is it just the two of you?
There's also Chelsea Pharmacy Group up here, I believe is on the screen as well.
Okay, Chelsea, welcome. I'm just trying to make sure that we've got a microphone for you. There we go. It's on the computer. Okay, perfect. Before I kick it over to you folks here, do we have a presentation, Pete?
We're going to give them,
We're going to give you control here. Hi, Chelsea, good to see you. We're going to give you guys control and why we get that set up for council this evening. This will be your last presentation on the Exit 21 study that we've worked a number of months on, a long time. Public outreach and surveys and everything else that we've come to. This is the last presentation. With that said, there is an expectation for a decision at the next council meeting, so you're aware. We're not asking you to decide what is presented this evening, but we are asking council to make a decision so we can move forward with the project at the next meeting. So enjoy the presentation here, and if you have any questions, now's your opportunity, and then hopefully we can move forward with a decision at the next meeting. And just so council's aware, I'm planning on getting with Ms. Coleman, this is a surprise to her, with Ms. Coleman this week to come up with one more public outreach survey with the two designs that have been brought forward to the community, and hopefully that will be one more opportunity for folks to weigh in on what they want to see here in their community. So that data will be coming forward at some point as well. Okay? So we're trying to provide as much information to council so a decision can be made, and then also to the community so they understand that this is coming, and to please provide a voice. And with that, am I kicking it to Anthony?
I think so, unless Tracy, do you want to start off, or do you want me to just go ahead and roll with it?
That's a loaded question, Anthony.
Roll with it. Let's roll. Let's rock and roll.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, City Councilors, and I'm assuming also the public may be viewing in as well. We appreciate the opportunity to spend a couple of minutes to talk through the latest and greatest regarding the Exit 21, or as we've been also calling it, the I-5 SR503 interchange project. We have about a 15 to 20 minute presentation. Feel free to ask us questions as we go through. We are obviously, the last slide is one of the questions if you do have other things, but feel free to ask questions as we go through. So we definitely appreciate the opportunity tonight to present the latest findings. I'll go ahead and go through Caleb and I will walk through about 15 slides or so to, number one, also provide a recap. Okay, so the agenda for this presentation is to provide everyone with a recap and the latest updates. A lot has happened since we've been in front of the council, I believe back in December. Also wanted to provide a summary of the evaluation of the concepts. We've gone through and worked with the stakeholders, meaning the city, the COG, as well as WashDOT, to do some refinements to the analysis, and wanted to walk through sort of point by point the key evaluations of each of the concepts. Wanted to highlight a couple of key items as well in terms of, and this may have been already shared with the council, but we have received support through the latest TAC meeting, as well as written responses from WashDOT and the CWCOG related to support of the project. And I think the mayor summed it up pretty well. Ultimately, the city council will provide a recommendation for some type of decision related to either one of the concepts moving forward. And then regarding next steps, our understanding is, should there be sort of a next step on this project, which I believe there will be, the city will be going out for requests for qualifications for what we're calling the phase 2 or the design of the project. So completely understand this graphic is pretty difficult to see. The nice thing is this is the same graphic that we've used in the beginning of the project that really outlines the key project issues. The color coding is what we used with this group, as well as the information that we had shared with the public at numerous open houses, as well as city council meetings, planning commission meetings, as well as I know the city staff had done some outreach throughout the life of the project. But some of the key issues related to, I know this group's pretty familiar with, is just the general congestion of the interchange. We know that there's quite a bit of congestion as well as backups of vehicles, and that's sort of the green number 1 area of cars spilling back onto the main line. The yellow area where it's highlighted as numbers 2, 3, 5, and 6, we wanted to highlight the level of congestion that has occurred and continues to occur along SR503, and also the opportunities to enhance some of the multimodal travel, potentially adding some sidewalks as well as bike lanes in the future. The pink area, or number 4, highlighting the congestion that happens at the I-5 ramp terminal at Pacific as well, and some of the long vehicle queues that do exist today. Throughout the day, actually, vehicle queues spilling back up to about 900 feet to 1,000 feet fairly routinely. So this is a project overview slide, same information that we've shared with this group in the past, and I know the city has this information should you need to reflect back on it at a future date. The project recap and latest updates that we wanted to provide is, wanted to start off, we all know that we started the project back in early 2019. It started with trying to get a better understanding of the project and the baseline assessments. With that, we did an extensive data collection effort, looking at both traffic volumes from a vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, as well as a heavy vehicle standpoint. We evaluated existing traffic conditions and multimodal conditions. And then we also looked at what would traffic conditions look like in the future. 20 plus years out in the future, should nothing be done, and with the proposed improvements. And it really shed some light on some of the key issues that are being, what the community is seeing today, and seeing some of that being exacerbated in the future if no improvements were to be done. No surprise, we were seeing a lot more congestion, a lot more vehicle queuing, and just the level of traffic and the connectivity is just that much more difficult to navigate, at least the south side of the city as well. So with that, I think most of you probably had attended one of the previous public outreach events, we did evaluate quite a number of concepts, both looking at the existing traffic signals, looking at roundabouts, looking at various street connections as well. Ultimately, I'll call it when the dust settled, we ended up having two concepts that really showed a lot of promise, a lot of merit, and that the stakeholders, the TAC, as well as the consultants could really stand behind, which is really nice. It's nice to have a couple of options to be able to move forward. One's the improved signal concept, and the second is the roundabouts, and we're going to go through each of these in a bit more detail just to refresh everyone's memory. Also wanted to highlight that this project has gone through a very extensive stakeholder engagement and public involvement. Wanted to highlight just a couple of the major events and activities and meetings that we've had, but we've had a number of stakeholder meetings, and these have been meetings involving the city, many of you that are on the call right now, but also Washington State Department of Transportation staff, as well as the CWCOG. We also had a number of TAC meetings, which are Technical Advisory Committee meetings. That involved the stakeholders as well, but also included Clark County, Cowlitz County, the port, as well as the Federal Highway Administration. So it really truly was an all-encompassing technical advisory committee. We also held with the city various small public engagement meetings. We've been in front of the Planning Commission. We appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the City Council again today. We also had special meetings and special sort of one-on-one correspondence with the trucking industry. We know that there's a lot of folks locally that rely on the interchange, both from the south and the north, to access and utilize larger trucks going through it. So we wanted to make sure that we were accommodating all users. And then we obviously had a larger public open house that I know many of you were able to attend. We've also completed some draft documentation, and that's currently under review with the city as well. So these next two slides are the two concepts. The one that you're seeing in front of you is the improved signal concept. This is the same schematic conceptual design that was presented in front of this group as well as at the public meeting back in February. So we haven't made any modifications to this one. Just a reminder, the key to this concept is there's showing 4 signalized intersections in series. I think everyone is well aware of the traffic signals that are at the 2 ramp terminal intersections. So if you're traveling on I-5 and you exit northbound, you'll run into a traffic signal. So this concept tries to improve the signal at the northbound ramp terminal as well as the other adjacent signals. This concept also, just to refresh everyone's memory, also assumes a new roadway alignment connection to Millard Avenue and shows a new traffic signal at the intersection of Millard and 503. So this is a critical component to the signalized intersection concept to clean up sort of the eastern side of the interchange, create a bit more spacing between the traffic signals there. The other main concept that we've been in front of the group as well is the roundabout concept. So this is one where we have 3 roundabouts in series. And instead of having that Millard Avenue connection that we did for the traffic signal, you can see here that we're actually creating a 5th leg to the roundabout from the East CC Street. So that provides a 5th leg to the roundabout and basically takes out some of the Millard Avenue traffic that the other signalized concept shows as well. So wanted to highlight a couple of elements, not necessarily to either the concepts, but when we were last in front of the group, and since today, what we ended up doing was we did some more refinements on the traffic operational side that Caleb will walk through in a minute as part of the evaluation. But we also looked at some improvements, and also looking at, we know that throughout the city and actually outside of the city, there's opportunities for potential growth on the residential side. And so we worked with the city to sort of get a better idea of what the long-term growth potential could be, specifically in Cowlitz County as well as Clark County, and wanted to make sure that whatever improvement the city moves forward with, it truly looks at a long-term sort of reasonable worst-case scenario in terms of traffic volume growth. So those were some of the main refinements that we had done over the last several months related to both concepts. going to turn it over to Caleb now, and Caleb's going to walk us through the evaluation criteria that we've used sort of from day one when we're trying to compare these two concepts. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Caleb.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so as Anthony mentioned, I'm going to walk through some of the evaluation criteria that we've been considering throughout this project. And our hope is that this table here that you're seeing helps the council reach a decision and kind of evaluate the two options in the same way that our project team has been evaluating the two options. So we're going to start here. The first one is traffic operations. And Anthony, if you could flip to the next slide.
Maybe just real quick, just to highlight, to walk through. So what you're going to see over the next series of slides is you're going to see this evaluation matrix. And what the team's tried to do is you can kind of see some color coding here. And we're traffic engineers, so we didn't get that crafty in some of the color coding. But here's a green, yellow, and red, like a traffic signal. But the green highlights where we feel either from a traffic operations standpoint, there's really a good improvement, a significant improvement. And when you see later down in the criteria, you'll see a couple of evaluation criteria that are called community support, local industry support. The green, yellow, red, you'll see at the tail end of it, it talks a little bit about was there strong support, sort of moderate support, or really no support. So as Caleb and I walk you through the next series of slides, you'll see the color coding kind of pop up as you go through, and you will be able to see visually how we were evaluating or how we were comparing each one of those. So just wanted to give you a backdrop as Caleb walks through the next series of slides.
Yeah, thank you for filling that in, Anthony. Yeah, so the first one here, we're looking at traffic operations, kind of referring to the, reducing congestion and delay that we're seeing at the interchange. You'll see we ranked both options here as green, and as Anthony mentioned earlier, that's based on kind of all of the studies that we've done, assessing, existing traffic volumes, looking at projected future traffic volumes, and kind of tweaking our concepts along the way and coming to the conclusion that we really do have two viable alternatives here from a traffic operations standpoint. Both options are projected to operate well and limit queues, and the main thing here is they're expected to prevent traffic from backing up onto I-5, which was one of the main drivers of this project in the first place. Next one we're looking at is bike and pedestrian connectivity. This is a criteria that has been a pretty strong part of this project since the beginning, since some of the first meetings that we had. It's important to encourage bike and pedestrian travel throughout the city, and we know that this interchange here is one of only two locations in the city to cross over the I-5 main line. So we need to make sure that there is a safe and easy way for bikes and pedestrians to cross I-5. Again, we have both concepts ranked as a green. There's really no discernible difference between these two concepts from a bike and pedestrian connectivity standpoint. In both concepts, we're proposing a nice wide multi-use path under the bridge, signalized pedestrian crossings for the signals, and then also for the roundabout concept, we have pedestrian crossings on all three sides of the roundabout, but good connectivity east-west for the city. The next criteria we looked at is safety. This is obviously another really big one that we want to make sure we're taking into account. You'll see we have the roundabout ranked as a green, and the improved signal ranked as a yellow. And again, that's not to say that the improved signal is unsafe. We don't believe that by any means. But what we're trying to do here is just kind of note the differences between the roundabouts and the improved signals. One nice benefit of roundabouts, as they've been studied, is that they've been shown to provide some pretty nice safety benefits, significantly reducing the likelihood of rear crashes, just because of the slow speed environment that they encourage. So this has been an ongoing topic in our conversations with WSDOT too. This is a large reason for WashDOT's strong encouragement of roundabouts as alternatives at intersections. Moving on to looking at system-wide circulation. This is one where it may help us actually to look a little bit at the concepts, but they're both ranked green because really both concepts are maintaining the traffic circulation that the city has today. Some of the earlier concepts we were looking at, maybe considering rerouting traffic or creating one-way streets to try to relieve congestion. None of that really ended up being what was recommended as one of the preferred alternatives. So both of the alternatives that you're looking at today would largely maintain current traffic patterns and just help to expand capacity. Next one that we're looking at is right-of-way feasibility. This is another one where we think both are feasible, but we do want to point out some of the differences between the roundabout alternative and the improved signal alternative. And Anthony, maybe if we could flip over to the improved signals concept on this one. Looking at this concept first, there are some right-of-way, potential anticipated right-of-way challenges with this one, especially with the Millard Avenue connection over there. See, the road wouldn't necessarily be seriously impacting any businesses, but potentially requiring, some negotiations for that area. Other areas of the project is largely staying within its existing footprint, so no real right-of-way challenges anticipated for the rest of this concept. To compare that to the roundabouts that we look at now, using this concept, we entirely avoid the need to do that Millard Street connection, as Anthony mentioned. So as a result, it tends to simplify the right-of-way process and negotiations. One thing to note with the roundabouts down at Go Rig and Lakeshore, the smaller single-lane roundabout, there is an empty property down there in the southeast corner that is currently slated for a new library for the city. And the project team has been in contact with the library group, and the library group has indicated they'd be willing to work with whatever the city decides to do at that location. So while some right-of-way would be required from that corner, it's not anticipated to be a challenge for the project. I think that covers the right-of-way discussion. Next one we're looking at is estimated costs. Again, we've got both of these ranked as green because they are very similar in cost. We're seeing, as you see down there, we're seeing an estimated cost range of about 13 to 15 million for both of these concepts. And the important thing to remember with this figure is for an interchange, for nearly a complete interchange redesign, this would be considered a pretty good price to do it at. One of the things we talked about early on in this project was we don't want to impact the I-5 bridge, because if we impact the I-5 bridge, that cost goes up pretty significantly. So looking at these costs for the two roundabouts, we feel they're comparable, and the cost itself isn't necessarily going to be a factor to decide one versus the other. But as we'll talk about in a little bit, construction phasing and the available funding may be a factor to consider as we move forward.
Hey, Caleb?
Yeah.
Did you say I-5 bridge? Instead of,
Yeah.
it's,
I think you meant the overpass. Are you talking about the overpass?
Yes. Yeah. The overpass.
clarification on it.
Yeah. That was, to clarify on that one. It was the overpass that we didn't want to impact, because if you end up widening SR 503 going under I-5 and impacting that bridge or the overpass, then you have to rebuild a pretty significant section of I-5. So we definitely wanted to avoid that.
Thank you.
No problem. Onto the community support. As Anthony mentioned, we had quite a few outreach sessions. We had a great public open house that was well attended before COVID era. So we were glad we were able to fit that in. We got lots of feedback, and overall, it was good feedback. The community seemed excited that we were looking at solutions to this interchange. The majority of folks would to support either option. There was some folks that supported one versus the other, but reading through the feedback cards that we got, there was no real discernible preference towards one or the other. It really was split pretty 50-50. So that was good to get the community feedback in that regard. The other outreach we did, as Anthony mentioned, was we had a meeting specifically with companies that operate out of Woodland, and I want to say there were 10 to 12 companies represented there. You'll see here we've ranked the signals option as green and the roundabouts option as yellow. The reason for that is because there were a few trucking companies in Woodland who regularly transport oversized loads that saw the roundabouts as kind of introducing additional challenges to them getting their loads in and out. That being said, the majority of folks acknowledged that or noted that they would be okay with roundabouts and they could support either option. But we definitely wanted to follow up further with the individual companies who were more concerned about the roundabout concepts. And we did, and I just want to say on this, we did look pretty in depth at some of the large trucks that they were bringing through, and have been able to show that these roundabouts wouldn't preclude any trucks that currently are able to make it through the intersection. So that's definitely something that if this option were elected, definitely something we'd pay close attention to moving forward. Now, the last category we looked at is the construction phasing and schedule, and there's several nuances to that we want to discuss a little further, and Anthony is going to go into that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. So kind of looking at the criteria there for the construction phasing, you'll see that the improved signals is shown as green, and then the roundabouts is shown as yellow. There's an asterisk within the yellow, and it reads dependent on available funding. So going through the slide, the improved signals concept, and I'm going to bounce back and forth between this slide and the concepts. The improved signals, we do see the ability to construct the project in phases, while on the roundabouts, you would likely need to construct all the roundabouts at the same time. And I'm going to go ahead and flip to the signals and kind of explain what we're talking about. So here's the signal concept again in front of everybody. And if you look at I-5 and SR 503, which is the Lewis River Road, you'll see this concept calls for 4 traffic signals, all in series. The ability to construct this project, we see you could probably do it in a couple of phases. The first phase, what we would probably look at is doing I'll call it the east side of the interchange. So if you look at all of the improvements on the east side of I-5, so that would include the northbound off-ramp, the new traffic signal at Atlantic, as well as the Millard Avenue connection, and the new traffic signal at Millard and SR 503 Lewis River Road. So we feel confidently that you can do this in phases, and that could be what could be considered a phase 1. And then, depending on available funding, depending on construction season, so on and so forth, the city could come back and, whether it's a year from now or X number of years, it would really depend on timing and funding availability. You could come back and really look at those improvements on the west side to be able to upgrade the traffic signal at Pacific Avenue and 503 and the southbound I-5 ramp, as well as installing a signal at Lakeshore, Go Rig, and Buckeye. So this one, you could go back and sort of, I'll call it piecemeal, or what we call, phase construct the project in multiple phases, depending on what available funding's there. As Caleb mentioned, we're estimating this concept to be roughly between 13 and 15 million. So depending on if for some reason the available funding wasn't available within the next year, 2, 3, 4 years, you could phase construct this out, and I think there's a bit more options. On the roundabout, a little bit of a different story. Really, at the end of the day, the strength of also the signal and the roundabouts is to be able to kind of keep traffic flow moving, making sure that queues don't spill back into adjacent intersections. And so with the roundabout, we really do need to look at, the ability to kind of construct all three roundabouts at the same time. Meaning we don't necessarily see an option of being able to come in and construct the east side of the interchange and just do the one roundabout and leave, for example, Pacific and 503 as a signalized intersection. Some of the concerns is that, if you left it as a signal while that roundabout's being constructed, or even after the roundabout's constructed, would be the potential for vehicle queues spilling back from the traffic signal into the roundabout. And so there could be some operational concerns and issues that come up. So we really see the roundabouts as definitely a viable option, but I'd say the big question is there the available funding potentially in the near term to be able to construct all three roundabouts at the same time? So going back to the slide, this is where and why we color-coded it the way that we did. The improved signal green, because of the ability to construct in phases. The roundabout in yellow with an asterisk that says likely need to construct all roundabouts at the same time. Now, if the funding's available soon, you could probably move forward with either one, but knowing that, one of the key drivers of this project is to improve the operations and safety of exit 21, and specifically the northbound off-ramp, and to really prevent the northbound queues from spilling back onto I-5, depending on the available funding, the traffic signals, you may be able to do that, I'll call it sooner, if the full funding isn't available today. So if for some reason available funding was half of what the projected cost could be, you may be able to go in, do half of the signal concept, really improve that northbound off-ramp operations and safety, and then depending on when additional funding is available, you may be able to come back and do the rest of the signal concept. We really feel for the roundabout, like I said, you likely need to construct all the roundabouts at the same time. And so that last bullet, available funding is a key driver toward the schedule. It all depends on sort of what the schedule is, what the need is, and what available funding could take place. So that's kind of the big one we wanted to save for last. And that's obviously a conversation that the council can have as well. So this wraps up the formal portion of our presentation. I'm going to kind of pause on this slide because this one gives the complete picture in terms of the evaluation criteria. So I guess maybe, I don't know, I turn it back over to Mayor or Tracy?
I'll take it from here because I think we've got some questions that are ready to, not that we don't want to hear from Tracy. But we've got some questions, I believe, here on the dais. Mr. Fredericks.
Were there any of the items that you have highlighted in yellow on the improved signals roundabouts, anything that was a close yellow leaning towards red, but you had decided to go with yellow instead?
No, maybe I kind of failed to highlight. We really do have two really good options. We feel good about from an operations, a safety perspective. And I was talking to the stakeholder group several weeks ago. Sometimes it's pretty rare to have two really good viable options, but to answer your question, Counselor, no, there wasn't really anything. If anything, you could almost teeter on the side of where there's some yellows that really were teetering more toward the green.
Okay.
That was more the case.
And can I follow up with that?
Sure.
Which ones were they? Can you, off the top of your head, do you know which ones those are? Looking at those yellows?
Really, yeah, you could almost make a case for all of them in one. Safety one, Mayor. On the safety side, Caleb's absolutely right. The improved signal concept is designed to be very safe. the signals would be timed with one another, brand new equipment. We would obviously make sure, or WashDOT would make sure as well, that the new equipment had what are called reflectorized backplates with the signals and really the latest safety and features there. The reason why we just highlighted it yellow was part of a differentiator that Caleb highlighted is with roundabouts in general, not just these roundabouts that we're proposing, but roundabouts are designed geometrically to be able to slow down traffic when they actually go through. So, it's really slowing speeds down. So if there were a collision, more than likely they're side-select collisions that are happening at a lower speed versus a traffic signal. At times, what can happen at a traffic signal, if vehicles are traveling at a fairly decent speed, there really aren't any geometric approaches when you're approaching a traffic signal, especially if it's a straight shot. You're going to be able to go as fast as really you want to dictate, and really what's stopping you is when you're seeing that red light or that yellow light come through. That's the indicator to slow down. There really isn't a geometric feature of the intersection that's slowing you down versus the roundabout. So those were some of the nuances there. The right-of-way, Caleb, I thought did a really good job. I think at the end of the day with the roundabout, there's one property it's the library property or the future library property. The reason why we highlighted the improved signal yellow there is with the Millard Avenue, and I believe all three of the property owners or representatives from the property owners were at the open house as well. But there's three of them that would actually impact. Some, more impactful than others, but there are some three impacts to private property owners right there. And so that's why we felt showing the improved signal yellow was appropriate versus the roundabout. And then the local trucking industry, as Caleb mentioned, really support on both sides, but, there were, if we strictly take sort of the collective voice of the group, but then really looking at some of the folks that use some of those larger trucks, there was a preference for the signal, and so that was a differentiator there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have more questions.
Mr. Fredericks again.
So the state legislature years ago gave this city some money to study the feasibility of a crossing over Scott Avenue, over I-5 actually. And knowing full well, I think at the time, that the Washington Department of Transportation never envisioned that or did not support that. And so in my mind, it was a total waste of taxpayer money because the Washington Department of Transportation seems to have more power over what gets done from a transportation standpoint than our legislature. There seems to be a disconnect there. Having said that, does the Washington Department of Transportation approve the improved signals or the roundabouts? Because I have a real difficult time believing that the improved signals would be an option that the Washington Department of Transportation would be something that they'd be supportive of. And really, the only thing that's available for funding eventually, even though we're not talking about funding yet, or something that they would approve, is simply the roundabout option, and that's it. The city council, we could all say, yep, we want to move forward with the improved signals, but it's my impression that roundabouts, it's your choice, are roundabouts or roundabouts. Any thought there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I may quickly turn this over to Tracy because I think Tracy's been the one that's having the most correspondence. But at our last stakeholder meeting, the intent was to vet both concepts again with, and this was WashDOT as well as the city as well as the COG, and maybe this is where Tracy can jump in as well. But I believe WashDOT supportive of both concepts from the standpoint of they see both as being viable options. Tracy, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, actually, your statement is true. They did send an email, and I believe Pete has handed those out to you. There's 2 emails. Am I correct on that, Pete?
No.
No, we did not have
We did
those
not hand out.
Okay, so there's 2 emails that came back, one from WashDOT and one from the CW-COG. CW-COG is supportive of both concepts, and that's where we're going to start spending the dollars that they have towards engineering design and possible construction. And then also The WashDOT sent an email back saying they are supportive. Both concepts are great concepts, and they liked the work that was done on this project, and that they said they are leaning more towards the roundabout only because of the cost associated with a signalized intersection and the safety factor on a signalized versus a roundabout. But I sent an email back to them asking them for their support on either or design, because we wanted the part of this project proposal and procedure is to go through and ask our citizens and our stakeholders and the CW COG and WashDOT. We wanted everybody's feedback and the choice, the ability to be able to choose one of the designs and not be told what to do. So that's why we had our stakeholder meetings, and that's why we had our meeting with the trucking company, so on and so forth. So the presentation here from Kittleson shows that both ideas will work, and both ideas are good concepts, and both ideas are approximately the same cost. One outweighs the other in a few items, but to give you the bottom line answer, my understanding, and I believe that Kittleson agrees with me, that WashDOT is supportive of either or, but they do always tend to lean towards roundabouts because of the safety factor and the lower maintenance cost on their end.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the questions. I think I see Travis and the Goddard in the chat feature. He did ask what the maintenance and operations costs for the traffic light per year. And Caleb, I kind of put you on the spot. I believe we ended up getting some general costs per year for a signal, and I want to say it was around the $4,000 to $5,000 that I'm swinging right now.
Yeah, I think the number I remember is $6,000 per year per signal.
Is that
that's to pay for retiming and just general maintenance over the years.
Hey, Caleb, is that per intersection or per light standard?
Per intersection.
Per intersection. Okay, thank you. And there was 4 intersections, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think on the maintenance side, though, the roundabouts will also have some maintenance. Obviously, not necessarily a signal maintenance, but on the landscaping, and that can vary depending on what type of landscaping. And I'm not necessarily talking about the central island, but even some of the landscaping that could be happening on the outside of the roundabout. So I believe the signal was a little bit more, but not by a lot from a pure maintenance standpoint. And I think obviously the maintenance for the roundabouts can really be driven on what the city and what WashDOT, what you all potentially agree with what type of landscaping could be out there. You could absolutely do something that really requires no maintenance at all, potentially, or very low, to something that could cost a bit more. So, and I think someone may have asked who pays for the maintenance, and that I don't have an answer for that one. I'm not sure if somebody from the city staff may be able to answer that. My understanding is the ramp terminals would be owned and maintained by WashDOT, so I would assume WashDOT would be maintaining everything.
So Millard and Buckeye intersections would have to be maintained by the city. Tracy?
Yeah, I'm not sure that does the city have some type of maintenance agreement with WashDOT to maintain these traffic signals?
No, they haven't. We don't have an official agreement in-house, but they've been maintaining it forever and a day, and they continue to maintain it. We don't maintain the traffic signals, I'll tell you that right now.
Gotcha.
We go on the roundabout over on exit 22. We will sweep the street, but they take care of the drainage and maintenance and striping and all that. So we kind of take care of the street around it, but they take care of that roundabout.
Thanks, Tracy.
And I did look up the information, and from Rick Kinniston from WashDOT, it was $6,000 for the signal.
Anything else?
I have one more.
One more, Mr. Fredericks.
This may have been covered in previously provided information, but how many years does this give us, and what are the traffic cues that we can expect in 5, 10, 15 years on both projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we looked at traffic projections out till 20 plus years out. We started off looking at the growth within the city, or the expected growth within the city, and which also included, we know that the city's moving forward with an industrial study, which that area could generate quite a bit of traffic. We then took a slight pause in knowing that there were some other development opportunities, I'll call it, that are happening outside of the city limits. This is where we worked with the city as well as a transportation group that is a sub-consultant to Kittleson on this project to look at future forecasts based on a couple of the residential growth scenarios. And it sounds like there's a couple of areas outside of the city limits that have the potential of future single-family homes or some type of residential that could also use exit 21. So long story short, our horizon year for our study, we looked at a 2040 horizon year. And so under the traffic operations and the graphic that you see in front of you, we're showing green. The city as well as WashDOT have intersection operational standards. So what we're indicating is under the 2040 scenario, whether it's a traffic signal or an improved signal, or a roundabout, we're showing that things are going to be operating fairly well. And we're trying to, first and foremost, what we're trying to do with both of these concepts is to minimize/eliminate the queuing that occurs on the I-5 northbound ramp, and really trying to minimize the number of times queues spill back onto the main line. So based on our traffic operations analysis and simulation runs that we've done, both of these concepts work well up through the year 2040. Now, things could change obviously quite a bit. I think, part of the work that we've done is we're trying to use the best available information that's out there. I think city staff have done a tremendous job providing us with future land use, employment, population information that we've been able to use into our transportation models. Also, in my opinion, we've taken a really reasonable, conservative approach at looking at some of these residential areas outside of the city. I think everyone understands, and especially the group as part of the council and the mayor fully understand that there's quite a bit of growth outside of the city that will use exit 21 unless there's some other major improvement somewhere outside of the city that allows for entry and exit to I-5, but don't see that happening anytime soon, or at least nothing's in the planning horizon for this project. So I apologize for the long-winded answer, but yeah, we feel good. We looked at a 2040 scenario using the best of information that we've had thus far, and both concepts truly do operate well. Now, I think, I can't remember who had mentioned it, there's certain intersections and certain movements that do operate better than others based on the signal or the roundabout. One of the concerns could be with, like, for example, the roundabout is if some congestion does occur, is there a way to make sure that, or at least try to limit the number of queues that spill back onto I-5? And so we looked at evaluating an option where we're actually what's called metering the traffic that enters the roundabout. So we would actually use a traffic signal, and we would use it to stop one direction of traffic to allow the northbound traffic I-5 to have the major movement to be able to kind of flow more freely. So that's a long-term strategy should traffic volumes get really, really high. Right now we're using the best information available, and we feel pretty good about it.
Is that an easier fix on a signal or a roundabout in the future? And was there any advantage over roundabouts over intersections, or intersections over roundabouts? Or were they roughly the same? Because I'm hearing in your answer, I'm hearing basically between now and 2040, roughly the same kind of queues can be expected in either option.
Yeah, I'm showing the signalized concept right here, and what Caleb had mentioned before is what we're trying to do with both concepts is we're trying to not impact the overpass of I-5 on 503. And so with that in itself creates some sort of limitations to the concepts. Now, I think for the traffic signal concept that you're seeing in front of you, because we're trying to not impact the bridge structure, this is sort of what you're seeing right now, so we don't have to hit any of those bridge piers. Now, there could be an option later on. Let's say the traffic volumes get really, really bad 20, 30 years out in the future. Could there be an option to widen 503 and impact those piers? Absolutely. You know, there probably is a way to widen. You could probably expand the road a little bit, even near Go Rig. You could probably do some widening there and really create larger signalized intersections and larger roadways. Not saying that's what we want to do, but could you go ahead and do that with the signal option to provide a bit more capacity and more vehicle queue storage? There's probably an option there. With the roundabout, it gets a bit more tricky because it's not like with the roundabout. Right now, we're showing on SR 503 Lewis River Road, we're showing 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction. And that's how it approaches the roundabout, and that's how it exits the roundabout. So it's not as if we could come back and widen the road or add additional turn lanes. What you're seeing here is really what we would expect to be there for the long haul. So to try to get more specific to answering your question, Counselor, there is more flexibility with the traffic signal. Should you want to add some more turn lanes or potentially do some roadway widening, it would get much more difficult potentially with the roundabout concept here. The queuing is going to be a little bit different. So the congestion and queuing, the roundabout, obviously, you know, as you approach your roundabout, you're really looking at gaps in traffic to be able to enter the traffic stream. So depending on which movement you're coming and how much conflicting traffic there is, that's going to really dictate the amount of queuing. The improved signal, we know that there's a lot of congestion or a lot of traffic either way for both concepts. This one's really relying on the signal timing, obviously, and how much green time we're giving specific movements. So the issue with the traffic signal that I know this community is well aware of is that when you get to a traffic signal, you know, if there's no traffic around, you're still waiting on the red light to turn green to go. With the roundabout, if you get up to the stop bar, the yield bar actually, and there's no conflicting traffic, you're going to go ahead and go through the roundabout. So inherently, we are predicting a little bit more queuing that's going to happen with the traffic signal, especially under, I'll call it heavier congested times, because queues are going to spill back and the flow is going to be really dictated on how much green time we're giving certain movements.
Thank you. I have no additional questions.
Anything further?
Great question.
Mr. Plaza?
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions, hopefully. Can we go back to the screen that had the green light thing on it?
The green light? That one. Okay, perfect.
Okay, if I remember right, and I might have misheard something, but under system-wide circulation, you guys had said that under both of those programs, the improved signals or the roundabouts, that traffic on the side streets on Gorig and Pacific and everything, that's going to be the same as it is now. Did I hear that right?
Can you say that again?
Okay, so I'm just making sure that I'm tracking correctly, because I think I might have misheard something. But under the 2 plans that you guys have, the improved traffic lights or the roundabouts, I thought I heard whoever was talking at the time say that no matter which one of those plans gets put into effect, that the traffic on those roads, on Gorig and Pacific and whatnot, that's going to stay at the same level that it's at now. Did I hear that right?
I think that was me that was talking through that. I may have misspoke there. I think what I meant to convey is that the circulation of traffic will remain the same. So kind of the route that traffic will take. These concepts aren't necessarily rerouting traffic compared to what the existing condition is. So capacity would be increased and congestion would decrease. But it's a concept that's not creating a significant amount of what sometimes we call it out of direction travel. Adding travel time to a trip.
Okay. Well, that clears that up then. Okay, and the second question I have, I don't even know if this is something you guys can answer or not, but I'm throwing it out there. So down at Lake Shore and Buckeye and Goring, regardless if we have a light or more than likely if we have a roundabout there, north of Lake Shore, that's a 4-lane road, 2 lanes, for each direction. South of that, it turns into a 2-lane road, 1 lane for both directions. Is there any discussion as far as what they're going to do for traffics that need to merge? Is the roundabout a 1-lane roundabout? Is it going to be a 2-lane? What kind of direction are we going to give drivers as far as the proper way to merge in there without hitting each other?
So for the roundabout specifically, this one at least right here, this one's shown as a single lane. So right now we would, depending on if there's a single lane, obviously we wouldn't necessarily widen, but we would create I'll call it the appropriate merge area. So if you're traveling, if you're coming down, and I apologize, I'm not too familiar with GoToMeeting. I know if I'm moving my mouse, can you guys, can the group see my mouse?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you see my mouse sort of moving here, if you're traveling in the westbound direction, this is 2 lanes going through a multi-lane roundabout, going through a multi-lane roundabout as well. And this is where the area where we would have drivers merge into a single lane to get into the single lane roundabout. For each of these other legs here, here, and here, these would right now be designed as a single lane. Now, there could be a potential, depending on right-of-way availability and need, is to design this as a single lane today with the flexibility of making it a multi-lane. And that's something that we haven't vetted too closely, but could be something that could be explored for additional capacity. But you bring up a really good point. If I went to the traffic signal here, if you can still see my mouse moving again, here we have the same scenario where we do have 2 lanes heading in, I'll call it the westbound direction. And you carry the 2 lanes, and in this scenario, it's really difficult to see though. This wouldn't necessarily carry 2 lanes through the intersection south to Gorig where there's 1 lane in each direction. Because of the anticipated heavy turning movements going from Lewis River Road or Gorig to Lakeshore, this actually would become a left turn lane. So we would have 2 lanes coming into this point, but we would actually only have a single lane exiting to go that direction. So I know that there's a lot of potential growth. Gorig could carry more traffic obviously in the future, so I'm not quite sure what the future holds for the south section of it, if there's even an opportunity to widen or not. Haven't looked at that too closely, but we feel good about the transitions we're laying out in terms of how do you get from 2 lanes to 1 lane. And then same thing in the northbound direction. You kind of see here, it's pretty difficult to tell, but we have a single lane going eastbound on Gorig, and then we'll introduce 2 lanes here, and then we'll actually carry the 2 lanes all the way through the interchange.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great question.
Any other questions? I don't see anything else. I'll just have one last final statement here. Well, probably 2, because I like to talk. That 20-year plan doesn't take into account some of the other options that we're looking at right now, which is a slip lane out of the port area and a potential bridge out of the southern part of Cowlitz County into Clark County, which folks would be using exit 16 as well when we talk about that capacity at 20 years. We're strictly looking at the area only.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to throw that out because we are already looking at those other options as well. So, awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate all the time and dedication you've given to us. And you spent a number of months with us, so I hope Tracy was kind to you.
Very.
Thank you.
I'll buy her a cake in gratitude. But we thank you for everything, and if we have any more questions, we'll get with Tracy and reach out to you. Like I've said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm instructing council that we're asking for a decision come forward at our next meeting in 2 weeks, and we'll be doing one last ditch effort from the community just so putting these two options out there and hopefully get just a little bit more feedback to see where they want to go. So we appreciate you and thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. All right. Moving on to citizen communication for items not on the agenda. I see no hands up in the gallery this evening, but is there anyone online for items not on the agenda? Now's your opportunity. All right, seeing none. Moving on to items on the agenda. Again, seeing no hands in the gallery. Anyone online for items on the agenda? Seeing none, come to the portion of the meeting for agenda approval.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Plaza.
I would like to approve the agenda, but removing item G until the first meeting in November. They wanted to be here, the business wanted to be here, and they're working on the presidential helicopter, and they had people come in tonight, and they had to take them to dinner, so they would like to, I would like to have that moved to the first meeting in November.
So there's a motion to approve and it's been seconded. So I would actually like to discuss it before we get to that. So
My only issue is there's misspelled business names on here. So before we approve it, to give somebody money, I guess their name should be right.
Give them 2 months.
we can pull, when it comes time to that.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
we can pull D because that's on the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting one way or another approving or denying G, but I think we should discuss it.
Okay. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda, seconded by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
All right, agenda's been approved. 5 yeses and 1 no.
They missed me again.
Oh, 5-6.
Sorry.
How'd I get?
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Okay, now it's 5. I counted wrong. I didn't take my shoe off that time. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you for voting tonight, Mrs. Holland. I appreciate you. And that's still 5 yeses and 1 no. Moving on to reports of City Council.
I don't have a report. I got a question for Ms. Coleman though, but I'll wait till Public Works.
Okay. All right, seeing none. Moving on to reports of standing committees, Finance and General Government.
That's me, I should get it together. We met this evening at 5:30. We reviewed the sales tax September monthly report. We're up $11,000 year over year without I can't say the name, but without a very large RV business. But overall, Ms. Holland, do you remember what the number is that we were total, put you on the spot? 35,000, roughly, 36,000?
Over.
Over.
Yeah.
So we're to the good from a sales tax standpoint. We reviewed the August financial report, the utility bill online payment fee waiver. We also discussed that. It's roughly $5,400. Are we reimbursing ourselves for CARES Act money for that?
No,
Can we?
maybe.
That's a great question.
Is there any left?
Yeah.
After?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Super.
That's a great question, Mr. Fredericks. I didn't even think of
I
that.
got 2 great questions a day. That's about it.
Wow.
So if we could check on that, that
That's
would
a
be
great
great.
question.
Let me see. Utility rate study and stormwater utility formation. We have action coming on that with a public hearing scheduled for November 16th. Our audit for the 2019 period began the week of 9/8/2020, and it's in process. And our audit costs for 2021 are going to be held the same, so we're not getting an increase there. Our 2021 preliminary budget will be distributed by the city administrator, Mr. Boyce, along with the budget calendar, which I believe is in the agenda tonight. We had one large leak adjustment that we reviewed. They were repaired, followed the appropriate process, and we issued a credit. The city issued a credit on that. And the CIAW insurance renewal is coming up for our November Finance Committee meeting. That will require action from the council. We also requested, the committee requested to move forward hotel motel funding and 2020 chamber invoice, 3 of 3. We sent that to council, so it's coming to council. There was no recommendation either way, but we did bring it forward. It will be coming forward for consideration at the next meeting. And that was it. Our meeting was adjourned at 6:04, and our next meeting is scheduled for November 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m., and it will be done remotely.
All right. Questions for Mr. Fredericks? Seeing none. Human Resources.
Okay, yeah, we met today at 6. Wasn't really a whole lot that we went over. Only thing that was really noteworthy is that the Police Officer Guild president has been hired by another police department and is no longer here. So we are waiting for a replacement on him in order to move forward, but the next meeting with the Guild to go over their contract is October 26th? 23rd. And so hopefully we'll have a Guild president in place by then, and we'll be able to move forward on things. So that was about it. And our next meeting is on November 2nd, and we're going to start having our meetings at 6 o'clock. And it looks like it's going to be remote as well.
All right. Questions for Mr. Palava? Seeing none. Moving on to reports of advisory committees. Mrs. Graham.
All righty. Chamber of Commerce, we are happy to say we are open from 9 to 4 every day, our winter hours. We have a political discussion tomorrow with Dennis Weber. He's running for county commissioner. His opponent is not able to attend apparently, but Mr. Weber is willing to take questions. So if anybody has any questions, send them to the visitor center or the
Mrs.
chamber
Miller?
office to answer to our executive director. And then we are still waiting for confirmation for the candidates for the Secretary of State for on the 13th, and we have still time on the 21st, the 20th. Wrote the wrong date down. I don't know if we'll have legislative at that time or not, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. And due to the COVID restrictions, the chamber unfortunately will not be able to host the downtown trick-or-treating event that we usually have every year, but we have been told that there are a few businesses downtown that are going to go ahead with that. So there will be some form of trick-or-treating. And then we have online at the Woodland Chamber website forms for people to nominate employee, business, and citizen of the year. So think about that, and so we can honor some of these people in our community. And let's see, that's it for Chamber.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Graham. Mr. Fredericks, question.
Question, will the city be handing out candy, or is that against policy?
The mayor will be.
The mayor will be.
Not at City Hall.
Not at City Hall. Okay, that's great, super.
And I've been speaking with the police chief
Hand out masks and sanitizer.
about maybe possibly doing a drive-through here at the police station instead. So nobody's actually coming into contact. So giving candy through the car. So more to come. There is a local business that is organizing. So more to come on that. But yes, and Miss Woodland will be making an appearance during the pass out of candy. Just I may have a line on how to get her there. So yeah, she will. Right. All right, Mrs. Rounds.
They're still not meeting in person, so I'm not attending.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Graham, downtown, Woodland Revitalization.
Downtown, we had a great meeting just this afternoon, and the committee has had about 3 meetings that there have been a lot of discussions going on about different things that we can do for downtown revitalization, and a lot of it's come about because we had received CARES Act money, and we know there's deadlines that is to be used on. So we have several things that we're going to be working on. We're going to try and get kids from the school, if they're interested in, and paint downtown windows for the holidays that are coming up. And then we are working on, thanks to Ms. Coleman, of installing some nice poles and getting some new banners, and they will, the banners, the downtown businesses can put up their, schedule their banners promoting their downtown business activities, etc., so on and so forth. And the money between what is available and what we have through CARES Act money, there is no additional cost to the city. And it is nice, we've talked about downtown and the city, and also hopefully when I talk to my chamber board, that possibilities of the chamber becoming involved in a couple of activities. So that'll come to them next week.
Good. Questions for Mrs. Graham?
I have one.
Yes,
So,
Mrs. Holland.
did the downtowners buy the PA system with the CARES Act money? I thought that was the thing that Ms. Coleman was after.
Ms. Coleman?
Yeah. I can hear part of what Deanna's saying, but I can hear everything what Janice is saying, but only part of what Deanna's saying, and they were asking about me, so.
She wants to know if you're able to buy the PA system as discussed.
Sorry for bothering you.
No, we aren't able to get the PA system as of yet.
And follow-up question, why not?
Because of the cost associated with it, the time frame for spending.
Okay.
So you can't just order one on the interwebs?
So, question is, can you not just order one online?
Well, yeah, you can, but the availability, they have to be able to, it has different antenna systems to be able to, it's a long-winded, I can have a discussion with her offline.
Okay.
It's convoluted, it is not just as easy as putting something up. You have to have a grid system, has to go on certain poles throughout the city, and we have a curve in our downtown, so it's not that simple, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done. But not in the time frame that we have for the CARES Act money.
Okay. Thank you. Did that satisfy? You need more? You just hook up?
I'm good.
Okay, she's good. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Graham? Or Ms. Coleman? Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports of city officers, as just stated, be participating in Halloween with Miss Woodland. Location to be determined. There's local business putting a map together of those other businesses that will be participating. That will be happening on Friday the 30th. Not on Halloween, but Friday the 30th. Normally it happens during the week right after school, so I'm anticipating it to be somewhere between the 3 and 5 o'clock hour, is what I'm hearing. So more to come. Yes, Friday. Yes, that is normal. I think it's usually between 3 and 5. Yeah. And other than that, Mr. Boyce.
Okay, so we're still looking for members to add to the planning commission. So we still don't have any applications. We'll continue advertising. There's also vacancies on the lodging tax advisory committee, so we're continuing to reach out to folks on that. Tonight, we're going to be handing out the preliminary budget. I'm waiting for it to be delivered here. What you're going to see tonight is all the numbers. It's a balanced budget. We have the new software this year. If you remember back to last year, we purchased. With some technical difficulties, we're going to have a much easier to read and more informative packet ready for you coming next Monday. We have our first budget work session scheduled for the 12th at 7 p.m. So this information you're going to get tonight is going to be some small print. I apologize for that, but we'll have a much better product with graphs, even a few pictures, and eventually what we want to try to do is give council access to the website so you can go in and drill down into more detail. When we do the presentation, I'll have it up on the big screen and we'll show you some of the functionality. We'll also have hard copies for council. Then eventually what we want to do is open it up to the public and not just have the annual budget up there, but other financial documents that they can explore and look at the big picture and drill down into the nitty-gritty. So it's coming. We're in the middle of the audit right now, so we've been doing a little bit of double duty with the budget prep and pleasing auditors. So that's moving quite nicely. In the packet here, you can see the upcoming meetings for budget. So at this point in time, council starts meeting on a weekly basis until the budget is complete. So beware of the dates, and I'm hoping it will be a smooth budget process. There will be some discussion points, such as we have the Proposition 1 money for the law enforcement lid lift. So we're budgeting for 3 new positions in the 2021 budget, 2 patrol officers, and 1 administrative sergeant. So those are in there. And staffing's still an issue. We're still not bringing back a few of the folks that we laid off in 2021, so we'll be discussing that in more detail next week. So that's all I have at this point. If anyone has any questions, I will try to answer those.
Seeing none?
Just some, back the date. Is it next Monday? Because Monday is a holiday.
Is Monday a holiday?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Veterans, or not Veterans.
Columbus
Day.
Mr. Chapman was just saying, I said, no, it says it's a Canadian holiday.
Thanksgiving
is Columbus Day.
The city does not observe it.
Okay.
So,
Oh, okay, so we can meet then?
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I
okay.
just want to step on union toes.
Right.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
No, they're not union.
Okay.
Pete's not union, he'll be
More
here.
than happy to be here.
We'll have a Canadian.
And hey, Pete, on this list here, just Mr. Goddard just reached out. The planning commission on the 15th has actually been canceled. So that can be scratched off, so do not put that on your radar.
Is that because they don't have enough members?
Mr. Goddard, is it because you don't have a quorum for the planning commission? Correct. That is correct.
I was gonna say, what I can see is he's in a rave right now.
He is. He's always in a rave.
Okay.
He's always in a rave. He likes to party down. The fan on the ceiling is making some disco light looking stuff behind you.
I'm trying to get that fixed.
All right, Mr. Boyce. Sorry.
That's all I have.
That's all. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Boyce? The team's been working very hard on the budget, and we're excited to give it to you. So, all right, moving on. All the other reports have been attached as usual. Does anyone have any specific questions for any of the executive team members tonight?
I have a question on Public Works. Mr. Coleman.
Ms. Coleman, you're up. Mr. Fredericks.
Ms. Coleman, hey, a few city council meetings ago, or months, maybe even half a year ago, I asked about whether or not the Department of Transportation could come out and improve the lane ending, where the lane ends over by the, I want to say there's a gas station there, kind of over where the liquor store is.
Right. Luckman's Coffee.
And with some
area.
arrows pointing that the lane ends. Now, folks from Woodland who live here, we know the lane ends, but we get many visitors who aren't from Woodland that don't recognize that the lane ends, and there have been, what I have seen, a few instances where there have been some close calls. What is the Washington Department of Transportation doing? Are they just ignoring it, thinking it's going to go away and get better, or just going to wait for an accident and then they'll do something?
No, I'm working with Rick Kennenston on that. Part of it is the maintenance. Is this by the Shell station?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Across the street from
Yeah.
Rose.
Heading east, I guess.
That would be south.
South, sorry.
That's actually south.
South. It's south.
Coming from a
503
state trooper, that would be south.
Yeah, so we had talked about, now this isn't for where the lane is ending, but I've been working with Rick as late or as early as June of last year, and actually Sergeant Lip too. One of the items that we're working on that we're having difficulty with, this isn't about the lane ending, but let me just tell you about this, that we're thinking about putting candles along that because it's double lines and people are crossing over on either side of the road and they're not supposed to because it's double lines there. But we've talked about putting a sign that says lane ends, and Rick said there's already a sign out there that says that lane ends, and I need to go out and just drive it to tell you the truth. But I am in contact with Rick Kennenston, who is the WashDOT traffic engineer. They aren't blowing us off. It's just kind of been, and I'll be honest with you, it's been kind of on the back burner with everything else that we've kind of been working on, and I apologize for that. So it isn't that we haven't been thinking about it, it's just things come up, and I know it's there, and I'm hoping to shout that nothing happens in the meantime.
Ms. Coleman, no sweat on that. My thing is that there is a sign over there, but it would be very helpful if you could have them just put down, they've done this before, big white arrows pointing to the left would help. Lane ends. That would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm not a traffic engineer, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night either, so.
Wow. All right, awesome. Okay, any other questions for any of the executive team members? All right, seeing no hands. Thank you. Moving on to consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items, but correct the business name spelling on action item D. Verify that all the business names are spelled correctly.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Frederick, second by Councilmember Holland. Before we go to a vote, could I be told which one is misspelled?
Yeah, I don't know either.
Her application says Classic Hair Company,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's Classy.
Got you. With the change on consent item D, number 2, change Classy to Classic Hair Company.
And then I did have a question
Yes.
with this, like the fourth person, their application is virtually blank, so I'm assuming that's who.
It's at the top. I did receive that information. I just need to transfer it to the clerk treasurer. I did reach
Okay.
out and said, hey, everything was filled out with the exception of the contact information. So I did reach out, and I do have that information. It will be inserted in.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Mr. Boyce, will you please take the vote on consent items with the change to consent item D, number 2?
Okay, Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
All right, consent items have passed. Moving on to action item E, ordinance number 1471, Planning Commission members change, final reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1471, final reading.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Frederick.
I have no discussion.
Councilmember Rounds.
No discussion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item E, ordinance number 1471?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Consent, or action item E has passed. Moving on to action item F, ordinance number 1472, amending council rules, final reading.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Plaza, seconded by Councilmember Holland. Councilmember Plaza.
No comment.
Councilmember Holland.
No comment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item F, ordinance number 1472?
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Action item F has passed. Moving on to action item G. Direct staff to prepare change to light industrial code to allow up to 5 guest rooms for company employees for short-term overnight stays and no guests allowed.
So I guess I have questions for staff on this. Are we able to discuss it, or do we need a motion to discuss it? What's the proper procedure for that? We're not yet moving it.
I don't think you can discuss it until a motion on the floor.
I make a motion to discuss action item G.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
Just want to discuss it and get more information from Mr. Goddard.
Okay. Mr. Chapman.
I concur.
Okay. Mr. Goddard.
So we have to approve the.
Good evening.
To vote on.
Oh, stand by one moment.
We have to vote on this.
On to talk to
On
Mr.
opening it up to discussion.
Opening up to discussion with a motion in a
Oh,
second.
yes.
We just didn't take the vote. There might be people who don't want to vote for it.
Oh, I see.
The other,
To
yes.
discuss it. Got you.
Yes, no,
Got you.
maybe I
I'm
don't
sorry.
want to discuss
I'm
it.
sorry. I misread the motion. Got you. Further discussion on the motion to discuss action item G.
You need to take the vote, I
On,
think.
No,
Don't
I
you?
think you just need to vote now.
I just need a vote.
Okay.
Yes.
It's Monday, part one.
A motion to discuss is just all in favor say aye.
If you want to be.
And Mr. Boyce. You always throw me
Councilmember
for
Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
All right, the motion to discuss action item G has passed. Mr. Goddard.
He's on here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
From your first person, yes, I can. He's on there twice.
Oh, he is. Oh, yes,
Do
go
you have
ahead.
any questions?
I do.
Mr. Fredericks.
Can you, I'm assuming that's, you know this, you know what is attempting to be done here?
Sure. This came up when the fire inspector was doing some work at a business in the industrial district, and they came across some spare office space that was being temporarily used for housing for what's in planning is called transient housing, meaning that it's not residential, but it's more just for the occasional use. And they brought up the issue that it did not meet code for being used for living space, transient living space. And so the business owner had contacted me at the city, and we had a discussion about conversion of the building for residential purposes. And in response to that, I pointed out that the building code and the fire code is only half of the problem, because our industrial code does not allow for residential uses or living in the industrial district except for resident caretaker and security. And those are limited instances where housing can occur in the industrial zone. And after having a few calls with concerned citizens, the question of whether or not our code should be adjusted to allow for transient residential uses in the industrial district, I presented 3 options, which were I could add the idea to my retooling our code list, which is a list of code changes that I keep in my back pocket so that when we are changing codes, I can make small adjustments and small changes in batches. But I won't be performing those duties until next year. And so the other option would be for the applicant to, or the property owner to apply for a code change request. In this case, it would be a zoning code amendment, but that would cost a considerable amount of money and go through the Planning Commission. And the third way to get this on my work plan would be for the mayor and the council to direct me to add it to my work plan. And that, I believe, is what prompted this issue to be discussed. And I am waiting for direction as to whether you'd like me to do that or not.
Mr. Goddard, the question on the floor is how much is it for the applicant to apply?
Zoning text amendments are $2,500, and there's a considerable amount of risk because zone changes or code changes are not always guaranteed to be approved.
Thank you.
So I heard 3 choices there. We can add this to a work list for 2021 to look at. Or the mayor and council can say, hey, we want you to change course on whatever you're working on, and we want this to make your priority, a la golf cart zone. Or the customer can pay a $2,500 code change request. And isn't that what everybody does if they want to do this?
That is normally what would happen, unless they want to wait for the retooling our code, which may take a significant amount of time. Okay,
and I, from my perspective, I definitely see what this customer. I'm calling them a customer because that's what they are. I definitely see why they're doing it. I'm in business as well. I completely understand what they're doing, but in the 12 years that I've been on council, I have had people from the industrial zone screaming at me that all money needs to be focused on the industrial zone. And basically, we're not interested in housing. And now I'm being asked to put housing, transient housing in the industrial zone. Is there any city in Washington, any municipality in Washington that allows this type of use anywhere?
Not that I know of. Normally it is in a commercial use, and the question here of 5 guest rooms is specifically listed because 6 or more rooms is considered a hotel or a motel. So essentially what you're being asked to consider here is small hotels and motels in the industrial district.
Mr. Goddard, can you think of any business in Woodland that we'd be concerned with having 5 residents or 5 units, so to speak, added to them? Because my understanding is what you're asking for here and what the request is to move forward to allow this for every business in light industrial to allow this. That's how I'm reading this. Am I reading it correctly?
My primary concern would be what kind of industrial use is in a building that would also accommodate residential units, because, and in this case, the Clark County Fire and Rescue specifically raised the issue of the building does not meet fire code and building code, and my immediate response was if it was some kind of hazardous material business, that if there was a leak, that the residential users wouldn't necessarily have the means to escape, let alone to know that there was a problem. So yes, I have concerns.
But But to clarify, this request is to allow every business. We're asking you to move this forward through the process and to prioritize it to be this is an issue that we need to address immediately. We put everything else on the back burner, and in essence, we're directing you to make this a priority for doing this for the entire light industrial zone. That's the way I read this request. The last sentence says, change the light industrial area code to allow up to 5 guest rooms for company employees for short-term overnight stays and no guests are allowed. That's for everyone, right? Not just for this customer.
That is true.
Business.
My one concern would be for code enforcement, I would not be able to prove whether or not they were guests or employees. So, for example, if I came in on Monday and there was a code enforcement complaint that the rooms had been rented for a high school party or a graduation party, I would not be able to prove or disprove that they weren't occupied by employees.
Okay. So can you explain the process to referring this customer to a code change request? Spending $2,500 on a code change request, why would we, do you think in your mind the council would be setting bad precedent by saying, hey, we're going to waive this for you, but are we going to do that for the next person that wants to do something special with their business?
So I can give you some concerns. I'm not particularly concerned with the council providing me direction to include that on my work plan, because that's your prerogative. My concern is that if the city is the applicant, it then becomes my job to try and get the proposal passed and to justify why the planning commission and city council should make a decision on it. Whereas if an applicant submits an application, they are responsible for proving or disproving their proposal, and it is staff's responsibility to analyze that and give advice as opposed to advocate for a position.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman? No, Mrs. Rounds?
I don't think that $2,500 is an issue. Not at all. I don't know why. I don't think the problem of an application is a problem. But the $2,500 is definitely not the problem.
So, but there, Mr. Goddard, you raised issue and concern with there being risk associated with the code change request of $2,500. There is a process, and that is an administrative process that follows. Is that correct? Council does not get involved in that, I would assume, at any point.
That is correct. Normally, the application would come before staff, or you would direct staff, and we would take it through the same process, regardless of who initiates it.
Okay. Then I guess it would be, I guess I'll wait for further discussion on it, but it would make sense to me that we follow the existing process that's outlined, and the business in this case would apply for the code change request and follow the appropriate administrative process that is already done, that's already set up for this. And Ms. Rounds, who submitted it, said she doesn't think that there would be an issue with that. I think it should just go through the normal process of the administrative process. Is that reasonable, Mr. Goddard?
I have no opinion on that.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Goddard, Mr. Goddard, that was an absolute test, and you passed with flying colors.
Isn't he good? Isn't he good?
You're really good, Mr. Goddard. That was great.
Further discussion? Okay.
I would like to make a motion if I may.
Mr. Fredericks.
I'd like to refer action item G back to staff to prepare a letter to Lifeport explaining the administrative process for a code change request in response to their letter dated September 14th, 2020.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Holland. Councilmember Fredericks.
Mr. Goddard, are you clear with the request?
Yes.
Yes, got it. Thank you, sir.
Had none. Councilmember Holland.
I have nothing.
Further discussion? Seeing nothing, Mr. Boyce, will you take? Motion on the floor is to refer action item G back to community development to respond to the letter dated September 14, 2020 from the business informing them of the process for code changes.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
All right, and that has passed. Questions, Mr. Goddard? No? Okay, perfect. All right, we've come to the portion for adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Whoa.
Second.
There we go. Moved by Mrs. Round, seconded by Mr. Fredericks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The time is 8:40.